racers that St. Louis has ever produced by hundreds of event wins. They're both over 800 event wins. Phenomenal drivers. Steve Pearson has been winning drag races. Let's put it this way. Steve Pearson won his first national event in 1974.
Wow. And he's just a normal gateway guy to the rest of us. I never knew that.
Over 800 event wins, him and Ricky both.
Wow.
So, or I should say him and Ricky each. There are over 800.
So do you think that drivers are better today than they used to be, or do you think the equipment is better today than it used to be? Do you think today a driver can get...
No, it's the whole thing. The equipment, the drivers, the knowledge, the ability to share information, it's all what makes current bracket racers the way they are.
Do you think that it's something to do with the fact that, for example, back in, like, let's just say your era, there's a lot of first generation racers that have to figure it out the hard way.
Don't go out of your way to call me an old man or anything. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's like, for example,
did they have electricity at the drag strips? Yeah.
Sometimes, but no. So my question is, though, is like, for example, I didn't have to learn everything the hard way. My dad taught me the basics, which is why I had a decent junior dragster career, was because I wasn't first generation, but a lot of people were in the 90s, you know? So do you
think you probably have a good idea of what I'm going to say? There's a reason I had a drag racing school for 14 years. And the reason was because there were so many racers who got so soured on getting their heads kicked in every week. And it was only because they were missing just the very basics in information, like staging depth. You know, everything that you do as a bracket racer goes back, or as a drag racer, goes back to staging depth. If you can't stage in the same spot up by within an eighth of an inch every single time, everything's going to be wrong. Right. And so few people knew that. And that's why I started the Bret Kepner Drag Racing School. And we had 750 graduates and, you know, tons of champions. Jason Phillips, you know. Right. So that was before the internet. But the internet took up and ran from there with the ability to disseminate information. Granted, half of it's total crap. But, you know, the good information is also out there. If you, like any other endeavor, if you put the time and effort into it, you're going to be successful at it. If you shoot one basket a day, you're going to suck as a basketball player. If you shoot 500 baskets a day, you're going to be a great basketball player. You can't help it.
Right.
So.
That's right. Completely. No, Casey, what number were we on, man?
Number 5.
Number 5. Yeah, we've had quite the show so far, guys. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We got a few technical difficulties just all over the place, and glad to be back live on every single channel. But so we used to hear how bracket racing was dying due to the old guys retiring, not enough people replacing them, etc. Bret, is the group of bracket racers in the country getting smaller, in your opinion? Did you ever think there would be a time where some could legitimately become a millionaire by bracket racing?
The second question is kind of weird. Even back in the 80s, I think everybody understood that if you paid $100 to win $5,000, theoretically you could pay $1,000 to win $50,000. But who in the world was going to do it? And who in the world had money? In the 90s, super pro teams in particular tended to be slightly lower dollar than they are now. You and I both know, or all three of us know, you don't need a stacker to go bracket racing.
Fact.
But we also know that a whole lot of people do have a stacker. So as the sport escalated in scope and price, it only kind of made sense that things would get, you know, bigger and better. You know, for 20 years, there were a lot of $20,000 and $50,000 races. There was just a handful of $100,000s. That was the problem. Now, the people that pay to go to an SFG race or anything else that's above 100, a spring fling or any of those races. That's a different human being than what we're talking about shows up on Saturday Night Gateway. Don't get me wrong, some of those guys do show up at Saturday Night at Gateway, but A, it's for kicks, and B, there's only 5 or 6 of them.
Right.
They're not necessarily any better than anybody else there. It's just that, they got $30,000 to throw away on a weekend. That's part of life. We've all grown up around people that had more money than us. That's the way it is. Bracket racing, on the other hand, is an incredibly small segment of drag racing, the umbrella version that you brought up earlier. The current face of the sport is not bracket racing. There was a period when it was, don't get me wrong, and that period was probably 1980 to 1995 or so. But it was never number one. You know what number one is for a track operator or for number of racers or whatever else?
Pro ranks.
Hell no.
Testing tune.
Of course.
Yep.
There's no purse to pay, and everybody wants to do it, and everybody's a winner.
Right. And they don't have to necessarily prep the truck like they do otherwise.
Well, boy, are we opening up a can of worms here? You and I both know that the average guy who goes out and buys a new Camaro, not a Copo Camaro, but just a new, 1203 Camaro, goes to the racetrack, and what happens the first time he runs down the track? Come on, what happens?
Snags the wall.
Oh, no, you don't smack the wall. What's the very first thing that anybody with a car that has more than 250 horsepower does on his first run?
Does a burnout. That's what I would do.
After that, what's he do?
Floor it.
He does another burnout. They all the tires off.
It's spinning. Yep.
Right. Because they got 100,000-mile Montgomery Ward tires on. Sorry, Montgomery Ward went out of business half a century ago. You know what I'm saying? They all got junk street tires on it. And what's the first thing they do when they spin the tires all the way down the track?
Stand on the gas even harder, maybe? I don't know.
Blame the track for not being prepped for their car. My car's fun, so you suck. Not me, you. But the bottom line is, the funny part about the tested tune is that it's turned into its own spectator sport. Now that we have no prep kings and grudge racing and all that other stuff, here's the same deal. It's just a bunch of people with cars. Doesn't really matter how fast they are. Doesn't really matter if they blow the tires off. But it's now a spectator event. So, right. Yeah, from a track promoter standpoint, bracket racers can go take a hike. Midnight Madness with 300 cars capped at $30 a hit, with a median age of 18 and a half. It's not a drag race. It's what drag strips were built for originally. It's a social center. It's a social event. Guys go to hit on chicks. Chicks go to hit on guys. Guys go fast and show off for the girls. Girls go fast and show off for the guys. That's all it is. And it's a place to drink illegally.
Yeah, exactly.
If we're going to be honest, I have to add that.
So
you guys probably know that I've spent most of my life chronicling, researching, and cataloging every drag strip ever built. And it's been my life's work. From the early 1950s, like I said, that's not when drag racing started. Drag racing started in 1902. Organized, competitive, big money drag racing started in 1902. But most people say it started in 1950, so whatever. Since the 1950s, when every little town had a drag strip at one time or another, not all at once. Everybody thinks that every town had a drag strip all at once in some magical year. But when almost every town had a little drag strip at one time or another, they were social centers. Yeah, the city fathers might have gotten behind it to keep the kids off the street from street racing, but they were social centers. That's why people went and paid their money to go, whether it was to watch or to race or to drink or to hit on girls or hit on guys. Drag racing is a social sport, as you, certainly as the three of us are vividly portraying. Drag racing is the only social endeavor in this country that cuts across every social strata known to man. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter if you're a paraplegic. It doesn't matter who you pray to. It doesn't matter who you sleep with. Everybody in drag racing is the same. And that's what makes drag racing different than everything else. And that's why it was an accepted social center in the North, in the South, in the East, in the West, you name it. Everybody got together for a common cause that saw beyond all social differences. Boy, you didn't expect that, did you?
That was great. I'll take it. I'll take it. But that's the truth too, though. And me and Casey talk about that all the time. When you go to the racetrack, you really don't have to worry about anything. It's almost like time or whatever else is going on in the world just is irrelevant. That's what I love about drag racing, as a matter of fact.
Exactly.
So hang in there real quick, guys. We'll be right back to you after these words from Mr. BRG. Hang in there. BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts are able to provide you with whatever you desire to enhance your drag racing operation. Items like safety belt magnets, nitrous bottle holders, and even quick release delay box mounts are able to be obtained from BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts. Have a look at top-selling items such as helmet hooks and steering wheel hooks, which are proven to make it easier to maneuver throughout your race car. You can contact BRG Motorsports 3D printed racing parts at telephone number 765-729-1177. But we're back, guys. We're back. It's Going Back to Racing YouTube channel. We're having a great time behind the scenes there, talking about the technical difficulties of my computer, it seems like today, and definitely glad to be back to you. Mr. BRG, can't thank you enough. I know I seen the prototype of that extinguisher holder for the inside of my door truck. Definitely got to get my hands on that. Let me know when you get it. I'll show the rest of the people who are interested in it as well. But back to Bret here. Bret, we got a question for you. Here we go. Tell us about the alias, Mr. Dirt.
Not much to tell. I started out racing a 66 Barracuda, 273 66 Barracuda, and I never washed it. And Brant Hansen, do you know Brant Hansen, or certainly know Todd Hansen?
Oh yeah. Really,
Todd,
Mr. Willie.
Todd and his brother, I used to hang out with them when I was a kid, and they started calling me Mr. Dirt. So,
got it.
It came from. It's not sexual or anything else. It's just because I washed my car.
So, Bret, let me ask you this question: What effect do you think Motor Mania has had on bracket racing as a sport? Do you think bracket racing would be where it is today with these major money races and things like this without a platform like Motor Mania to be able to televise this type of stuff and sell sponsorships?
There's a variety of answers to those questions. Let me go back to the very basics. Bracket racing is a very small niche of drag racing, and Megabucks bracket racing is a really small niche of bracket racing. If you were to wipe out anything that paid more than $20,000 to win tomorrow, there'd still be bracket racing at almost every track. So what do I think the big money deals have done? Nothing except been successful. Like I said, the sport wouldn't end if they stopped having them tomorrow. There's some guys that would say, well, I'm not going to race for 10 grand or 5 grand. Okay. I get it. It's your choice. But the rest of the world would keep racing, just in the same way that if bracket racing stopped tomorrow for whatever reason, there'd still be grudge racing.
Right.
Or if you want to take it all the way to the top, the NHRA suddenly collapsed tomorrow and there was no more Top Fuel or Funny Car or Pro Stock, we'd still be fine. Mm-hmm. So as far as Motor Mania is concerned, Mark Walter and I go way back. Mark and I ran each other in national event final rounds. You can believe that. Did you know Mark was a racer?
Yeah.
knew he was a racer. We actually had him on a show. Him and his wife Joanne actually, a little while back. Anyway.
Known him for 30 years, from long before he ever started doing the TV stuff. He was obviously the guy that doesn't get any credit for opening this up to the world. The flow racings and the NHRA.TVs and everything else go back to Motormania. I mean, he was the first guy that loaded a couple of cameras up in a truck and said to a track, "Give me $1,000 and I'll put this on the internet." Huge, huge place in drag racing history for that man. But again, if we didn't have big money bracket races that were televised on the internet, nothing's going to stop.
Still going to keep moving forward for sure.
So
I can name 10 drag strips within a 100-mile radius of St. Louis.
Right.
You can probably name the same 10 drag strips, but there's a lot of people who think Gateway's the only one.
Right.
You think any of those 10 would go away if there were no more big money drag races that were on the internet? No.
How long has I-57 been around? I mean, I grew up in 72. So I mean, that's proof right there. Now let me ask you this also. So George and I were talking about this whenever we were having the initial technical difficulties earlier, but obviously everybody's talking about fuel prices right now. We were talking about this in 2008. What are we in for in 2022?
Let's stop it right there. First of all, how the hell do I know? Second of all, let's stop right there. Yes, yesterday we finally ended up paying the same that we paid 14 years ago. Did drag racing end 14 years ago?
Nope.
How did it do over the last 14 years?
So far, so good.
Exactly. Now I'm going to tell you a personal Bret Kepner response that I don't bring up that often. And as much as I'm giving you grief for calling me an old man, I'm going to do it to myself here. January of 1980. It was the second oil embargo. It was a cold and dark and stormy night. It was the second oil embargo. And I sat in line. It wasn't a long line. It was 3 cars, but I still had to sit in line, pay $2.11 a gallon for gas. Converted to 2022 money, that comes out, just had to do it again because it came up in conversation just the other day. So I know exactly what it comes out to right now. Comes out to $7.21 a gallon. So until it gets up to $7.21, what do I have to bitch about?
There's nothing to talk about it, then.
2 years ago, I paid $7.61. Did my life end? Did drag racing end? Come on.
Right.
First of all, if you have to nearly slit your wrists because you're putting an extra $20 of gas into your car or even $100 into your truck, you got no business spending money on a hobby.
Hey,
you got other things to worry about, my friend.
That is true because since you say that, that's one of the things where I was just telling George earlier, yeah, it's going to take me to go to X track. It'll take me like $30 more round trip. But then once you start looking at it, you're like, yeah, but I would have no problem if I was out of fuel. I'd go get a drum of fuel right now for whatever it costs and bring it home.
That's right.
You want me to make you sound really stupid?
I do.
Well, first.
I was hoping somebody would raise their hand. You'll bitch. Keep in mind, I'm using you as a symbolic American. Okay? You will bitch about putting an extra $100 into your truck to go to a track with a 100% rain forecast for a $400 to win for a race that pays $400 to win but costs $401 to enter, and then get pissed off when you get there and they say it looks like rain, it's called off.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yep.
We are all heroin addicts. So any of us bitching about anything doesn't matter. We're all heroin addicts. We will kill people to do what we do, even if we lose money. We go out and try to get 8 grade points so that we can somehow get on the standby list to give the National Hot Rod Association $1,000 to go run Super Gas at Gainesville. And there's a lot of people right now looking at the computer, looking at the entry list, waiting for a spot to open in Super Gas at Gainesville right now.
Right.
And they will pay 3 times the entry money to buy somebody's spot, to be able to load up right now with no sleep, no food, no money, and drive to Florida. We are all in trouble.
At $5 a gallon.
At $5 a gallon. So Bret, check this out. If there was a bracket racing Hall of Fame, in your opinion, what credentials should it take to even get in it? And then if you had to name a few that could get in the bracket racing Hall of Fame, who would you select?
Very difficult question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in 3 Halls of Fame myself. I am on the board of 2. I went out of my way to make sure that one of the winningest drag racers of all time, he's a bracket racer, got in one of those halls. There are 3 others. Oh, I take it back. I'm sorry. I went out of my way to get 2 of them into the hall. There are 2 others who would be in my personal Hall of Fame that I haven't been able to get in any of those halls yet. I have mixed feelings about this because I'm in the International Hall of Fame and I'm the only bracket racer. Why? I don't have any idea. And I asked Don Garlitz, why? Granted, I'm a writer. I've done TV. I've managed tracks. I've raced. I've done all this other stuff. I asked him, which one are you putting me in for? And he said all of them. So I got no real answer what criteria other people have chosen. And I want people to understand that I don't consider myself a bracket racing Hall of Fame candidate. The 4 people that I'm talking about have all, I've been able to confirm, have all won more than 1,000 events. I would be very surprised if you knew any of the names. The most recent one that I got into the East Coast Hall of Fame was Roy Hagedorn.
I feel like I heard about him before just by living here, but I couldn't pick him out.
You're thinking of Larry Hagedorn and his kid Keegan. Those are the same. Those are the St. Louis Hagedorns.
Okay.
Roy Hagedorn lives in Florida, and he has won over 40 track championships, up to 3 a year.
Wow.
At different. He's a motorcycle racer. The other one that I really worked to get in the East Coast Hall of Fame was Steve Taylor. Ever heard of Steve Taylor?
Yeah, the Cavalier?
No, that's the other Steve Taylor.
Okay.
This Steve Taylor is, he was a class legal stock and super stock racer, but he also, I used to travel with him and race with him in rental cars. We used to go around different tracks racing in rental cars, and he got hooked up on you may have heard of him for his Chevy Cavalier front wheel drive cars. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay, then you were right. You did hear. There's another Steve Taylor who's past NHRA world champion. This is not him.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Taylor's biggest claim to fame outside of his win record was he's the guy that not only came up with the idea for, but also fought until his death to get the double red light system installed. What we call True Start now.
Right.
He was arguing with people about that 30 years ago. Because he raced slow cars like me, he felt it was an unfair advantage to the fast car because we always had the option to end the entire race. I, on the other hand, and he and I discussed this many times, always had the opinion of I may, as the slower car, I may have the first chance to red light, but I'm always in the lead until passed. So I figured that's how it worked out equally. Anyway, Steve Taylor, over 1,000 wins. The greatest foot racer of all time, in my mind, would be hard to argue for anybody else, even if they didn't agree. The greatest foot racer of all time had one leg. You know who that man is?
Nope.
That's unfortunate. Drove a Dodge called Trinity.
Nope.
Still not ringing bells.
Or you know, I should not even tell you the name just to see how many people give you grief on the internet for this. The other one is Butch Weinrich, who is, again, a guy that most people don't know, races mostly around the Delmarva area.
I know the name.
You know Butch Weinrich?
I know Chip Horton.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then you would definitely know Butch Weinrich. Sure. The other name, Chip Horton. Good job. You saved yourself. I wasn't going to tell you either.
I cheated. I got to give credit to Michael Beard in the chat. He's in the chat giving me the answer. I cheated, Brett.
Yeah. Chip Horton was a one-legged foot racer who won over 1,000 events confirmed. The other one is Butch Weinrich, who raced almost exclusively in the Delmarva area. Delmarva is Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. But they have a ton of really tough tracks in that area. Cecil County, Maryland International, all the Virginia tracks. He won at all of them, and he was over 1,000 wins. The reason I bring up 1,000 wins is because even in a 30-year career, you're talking about over 30 wins a year. So that's my criteria. You know what the problem is with that? It's my opinion, and just like you two, I don't care about anybody's opinion but my own, so mine doesn't mean anything to anybody else but me. So I don't know what criteria you could use. There are people who have won national events in front-wheel drive cars and rear-wheel drive cars, who have lived in a variety of places in the country, all of which were hotbeds of bracket racing and class racing, that have won in both class racing and bracket racing, who have also gone on to be tremendous promoters in bracket racing, bringing incredible innovation into bracket racing. Can't remember his name. Has something to do with hair on your face, though. What is it? I forget. Anyway,
Beard.
he's a great candidate. I mean, he's one of the best. He absolutely is. The Richardsons, of course. You know, there's so many people for so many reasons to put in there. Now, personally, I don't see how the hell you get into a Hall of Fame without winning a lot. And my win record isn't anything special. I'm at 113 wins, period. 184 final rounds. That's nothing. You know, there's over a dozen people in St. Louis that got that covered. Jason Phillips just passed me up, or if he didn't just pass me up, he's right there. And my point being, he was one of my students, you know, so obviously he's an example of the people that can kick my ass. Huh?
Maybe he actually learned something.
Maybe. Huh.
He'll tell you he did, but, you know, I never raced for a division title, but he did, and he won. So there you go. So I can't really answer your question about what criteria should be used because, like I said, it's my opinion, and unfortunately, halls of fame are pretty much popularity contests. So I don't know.
Sure.
Well,
sorry.
Right. I would say that personally, the reason why I think you belonged in the Hall of Fames, as far as what we would consider a bracket racing Hall of Fame, would be more so not because of your riding, not because of your TV career and all the history that you have in the sport. I would say it's because of a lot of the way that you went about it and showing people that you can do it with a street car and you don't need a stacker trailer, and that you can run any class you want and still be competitive in a 18-second car that you don't even own. You know, I think that's why. That's just my opinion.
I'll give you a little background on that. It doesn't have anything really to do with what we're talking about. But I started racing in 1976. In 1979, I moved to Ohio to manage Dragway 42. I was just starting an announcing career for the AHRA and the UDRA at the time. So I didn't race much in the 80s. And then in 1985, I started doing television. So I really didn't race at all through the 80s, 2 or 3 times, nothing major. In 1990, I still lived here, but I had moved back to St. Louis in 1985. In 1990, the delay box phenomenon had pretty much covered bracket racing everywhere you went. And here in St. Louis, I had all my friends that were just whining. You know, these delay boxes, they're killing us. You know, you put one in your car and you automatically win and blah, 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 blah. And I hadn't raced in, I think the last time I had raced before that was 1983. And I just couldn't believe what they were saying, that these boxes were just so incredible. I understood how they worked. You know, I announced all the time and, you know, looked at them and saw them and asked racers to explain them to me and things like that. So I knew what was going on. I, of course, knew the basics of bracket racing. But I had this stupid, slow 76 Corvette, and Steve Pearson and I were talking one night, and I said, I really need to go see what is different about bracket racing now than 1983. You know, I can't accept the fact that it's just now nobody can win. And I went, and the first night out, I won. And Steve said, see, it's not that different. And Steve knew all along, you know, that the box didn't do anything except make bad drivers worse. Good drivers are always going to be good. But now bad driver had a shot. But like I said at the beginning of the show, everybody can be 010 if you just know what you're doing. You know, if you know how to set up for an 010, simple as that. Not everybody's stupid enough on the foot to set up for an 010, but I can set up as close. I can set up as close as 015. You know, I won't intentionally set it up any closer than that. But my point is, once I figured out, well, yeah, I can make these adjustments through tire pressure, you know, just like they can make with a box, and I can do this and I can do that and make the car more consistent. And one of the ways, as you guys know, that I made my cars consistent was slowing them the hell down. Jimmy Pearson flashed the Grand Marquis that I race right now. We slowed that thing down 2 seconds and then overtired it to boot. You know, so it can't spin on a frozen lake, and it does the same thing every time. There's no such thing as an unbeatable tool. Matty boxes broke new ground, you know, when they came out. And the big problem with the technology that's out there is that we don't have any tech men that know what they're looking for. You know, 90% of the tech guys on the planet don't know what a delay box is, and they wouldn't unless it had a big red tag sticking out of it that said this is a delay box. Right. So if you don't know what a delay box looks like, does, or anything else, you're not going to be able to look for GPS, you know?
Right.
So
speaking of the Matty box, I was just telling George this the other day. Do you think that if someone had a Matty box today, that it would even be relevant? Because I don't. I think that Super Pro cars are so good today that I don't personally think you have the time to make the difference, because wasn't the Matty box was like a LED light system that you're like, okay, this is going too fast, this is going too slow?
It was before LEDs, my friend. It was just regular old light bulb. It basically was a light, colored light oriented system that told the driver what was going on. You know, what tipped everybody off, I was announcing one of the sport's darkest days when the riot started at the Moroso 5 day. What happened was Rich Matty made a single late in the rounds, had to buy. And remember, all buy runs are singles, but not all singles are buy runs. Always remember that. I hate it when a guy is making a solo run down the track because his opponent broke, and the announcer says, and he gets a buy run. And then you hear the same guy the next round getting a buy run, and you go up to the tower and say, what's going on, man? Well, it's all because the announcer doesn't know the difference between a single and a bye run. And there's no such thing as a broken bye or a competition bye. It's just a single, okay? Anyway, Matty made a single, and a lot of people noticed. Yeah, of course, he went dead on or something. And a lot of people noticed that, it wasn't that they thought he was pedaling the car, but the RPM was definitely changing. And B, he never looked up. That's what tipped the whole hand. Had that run not happened, I don't know if they'd know it now. The big problem with delay boxes, with Matty boxes in current bracket racing is, no, I don't think it would help that much, because right now Super Pro is a 1 in 10 roulette wheel. You know, you're not going to be more than 0-10 off, or you're dead anyway.
Right.
So if you don't screw up, then you're going to go somewhere between dead on the 0 and 009 package.
Right.
So it's just a roulette wheel. Would the Matty box help you be that much better? The other answer to that is no, not compared to the stuff that's probably out there 30 years later. Right. Because the Matty box was in 1990, for God's sakes.
Right.
Or it was somewhere in that area, 92, 93, something like that. So, the capabilities that are out there right now are insane. And like I said, nobody's checking it. So do we automatically assume the conspiracy theory that a lot of people are cheating? Or do we automatically assume that just a normal Super Pro car can go 00 something package? So do you really need anything stupider?
Exactly. That was kind of my point. Is I was telling George the other day also that I think there's a lot of guys out there that aren't necessarily footing their own bill at these big races that show up and they say, I'm going to set up to be 5 or better or 3 or better. And if it's green and I feel like I hit it, then I'm in front because I got nothing to lose because I didn't pay this bill.
Well, when you brought up the fact that I worked for Inside Drag Racing for 20 years or whatever it was, and don't get me wrong, I loved that show, but it was one of the many, many shows that I did. But one thing about Inside Drag Racing was we covered a drag race that nobody else covered. Do you remember what drag race that was? We covered every year?
Man, that was a long time ago.
Don't give me that crap. It was a big, important drag race. We were the only people to cover it every year.
As soon as you say it, I'm going to think I'm an idiot for not knowing.
The Million.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were the only person that covered the only show that covered the Million. We were the only show that paid any attention to it, for that matter. But I did something every year at the Million that I did more as a racer, but it was to prove to the average viewer that these cars weren't, remote control. And that was when we got down to the final, I would pull each driver away from people, literally put them over in a corner somewhere, and I would turn their back to anybody so that nobody could read their lips. And then I would take the other finalist and take him somewhere far away and do the exact same thing. I would ask them both the same question before the final. What did I ask them?
What are you going to be total?
No, not total. Because total doesn't, you don't know total until you get down there.
It's the finish line. What are you going to be on the tree?
Until you decide you have to cut them loose, you have to erase it or whatever. You don't know.
What
but there's one thing that you do know, and that is
reaction time.
Set up to be.
What you set in the box for. Not one human being in the 10 years we covered that race ever said the number they hit.
Get close?
Oh, yeah. No
but
question.
What's close? 5,000, 6,000? What's close?
You'd be surprised how many said more than 10th.
Really?
You'd be surprised how many guys said them setting up for a 12 or a 13. Now, afterward, there were Stephen Hughes. I hope I'm getting this right. Stephen, if I got it wrong, I apologize. But I think Stephen Hughes was the guy that went double bump in the final of the Million and went like 002.
Wow.
and that's double bumping. You know, I mean, that's just insane. You know, it's like, oops,
Boom,
click.
boom.
Now
Yep.
either click. You know,
I've only used a bump down maybe 2 or 3 times because of one time that happened to me. And I heard Jim Simmons told me at one point that Johnny LaBoose, he heard him say, you should just hit it the best time the first time. And then ever since then, I've had bump downs, but I've never hit them because I almost always bump myself red for whatever reason. If I miss it, like 002.
I think we've all learned that in bracket racing, the first time you second guess yourself, you're out, you're done.
Trouble anyway.
Right.
Yep.
But anyway, the reason that I brought this up was I've had 37 triple O's in my life. 2 of them were intentional. And both those were in drag racing school because the students, when I would tell them, what I used to do is I'd go out and I'd make a hit. And, you know, let's say whatever it was, 30. And I would turn to them and I'd say, okay, you give me a number and I'm going to set the tires up to hit it. And invariably, Paul Hagen or one of my close friends, smartasses, would say, you know, go over 000, you know, and it's like, God damn it. But either way, 2 times I did set it up for 000, and 2 times I actually did hit it. But my point is that I go to the starting line with a bulb, with the car set for a bulb. As long as I stage within 1/8 of an inch, as long as I leave when I'm supposed to leave, which is always the first flash of the 3rd yellow, because you don't need to be guessing in the middle of a bulb or anything else like that. And I flicker shallow, you know, that's how I stay where I'm supposed to be stage bulb. I don't ever go to the starting line with less than 015 in the bulb. And again, the package, you know, who knows what's going to happen when I get down to the other end. So, you know, I may hold 1 or 2, or I might be spot dropping that night or whatever. So the package itself is really up in the air. But as far as bulbs are concerned, I can hit it within, you know, 5 thou or 8 thou. I've had streaks where the what I set it up for and what I hit was never more than, you know, 4 or 6 thou. But the point is you're not going to hit it to the thou. We're not that good yet. And then AccuTime comes out with a 4-digit clock, and, you know, now we got to start all over again.
Yep.
I think,
triple zip now is 9/10 thou off, you know? So
what do you think bracket racing would be like if they never introduced the LED light? Do you think lights would be what they are right now? Because I was at the brink of, I started racing big cars whenever Gateway just went to LED and I-57 didn't have LEDs yet because their incandescents hadn't burned out yet. That's why, you know. And I always noticed if you miss it on an incandescent, you're going to be like, if you're set up to be 10, you're going to be like 40. But if you miss it on an LED, you're going to be like 20.
I think that changes that's different for every human being. The only thing that happened to me when they went to LEDs is I didn't have to set up for the 300s I was going to pick up in the dark.
Right.
That's it. And some people only picked up 200. Some people picked up a 10th. You know,
what
it's
crosstalk.
What about it?
Do you think that, because I always had, and maybe this is the same thing, because it has to do with the angle the bulb is away from you, obviously. But if you're looking across the lane, do you think that the fast car has less of an advantage on the starting line if they don't have crosstalk? Because now it's one more variable that the fast car has to take on, especially if you're, say, like a 470 dragster, because sometimes you cross, sometimes you don't.
Well, you're assuming that a crosstalk driver only has 1 hit.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, crosstalk is an automatic advantage because you get 2 hits. You had a bump in there, you got 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's true. So do you think that
me, on the other hand, I got 1 shot, buddy.
1.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's my left foot coming off the brake because I leave it full stall. So everything's on the left foot coming off the brake. I got 1 shot, period.
Do you hear
crosstalk, if they only had 1 chance at it, is still an advantage because the human being reacts much better to a single stimulus than to a countdown.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever goofed around, but you may think you leave on the third yellow and you don't see anything else when you're leaving on the bottom. Drop your visor sometime and tell me about it. Tell me all about the 600 bulb you're holding. Because that's what happens. You know, we tell ourselves we're only seeing the third bulb. It's not true at all. We're paying attention to the countdown, whether we know it or not. So,
so Bret, we could go on with you all night here right now. I know George has to run out of the house.
We need a part two. We just got to have a part two. That's all it is to it.
I'm game. You guys, I'm you guys any time of the week. I'm going to ask you before you hang up on me, though. I've known both of you since you were toddlers, and I mean that in the most serious sense. How are your old mans?
Oh, man. Still drag racing.
They're both still building.
But I mean, I haven't had a chance to see them, and I wonder how they are, you know.
Yep. My old man, you know, he built a couple cars now, maybe 4, I think, and chasing the big money a little bit, retired, grandkids. I've got 2 boys. My sister's got a daughter, and you know, he's doing good. Good health. I guess you can't complain. He wakes up, like you said, you know.
It's your fault he got old then.
Probably. I just didn't get in trouble. I mean, my sister was the one. She the one got in all trouble. You know, I didn't get in any. I didn't really get in any trouble.
I didn't know your sister, so don't say anything.
It's okay. She'll agree.
I will say this, and I mean this because I always thought it was really cool that you two had a show together, but both of your dads thought the world of both of you. Now, I'm not just saying that because I know plenty of dads who didn't. But in your cases, you know, the Atchin son thing, that meant so much to him, it wasn't even funny. And, of course, your dad, Casey, you know, he's just as big of a name as old man Atch, as George. So
yep.
I just thought that was pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Well, one of these days I'm going to have to fly back into Gateway because it's the only track that's around that. My dad's got that new Top Sportsman car done, so I got to get my advanced ET license. Well, got to run quarter mile to do it, says William Tharp. So I'll be there at some point.
Right.
Where
else are you guys going to race this year?
We both. So George is in Texas now. I'm in North Carolina. I live about maybe 30 minutes south of Raleigh. So I'm right by Galat and all that stuff. So I'll run there a lot, run Coastal Plains quite a bit, Kinston, a lot of the cool tracks from back in the day. I like those tracks, man. Like it reminds me of I-57 a lot. That's why I like it.
Yep.
No.
So I'm right next to I-30 in Cattle Mills, Texas, about an hour away from there. There's a new There's a new track in Ferris called Extreme. I guess it's just a few years old, maybe 2018 or so. Called Extreme. That one's nice.
Actually, I think it opened in 2019, and it's all concrete and it's a nice track. Yeah,
and it's fast. And then, of course, I'm an hour away from Ardmore, so I'm in Sherman, Texas. And if I just stick my hand up, see which way the wind's blowing that day, I can find me a good track to go to. So yeah, I'm really liking Ardmore quite a bit. It's like what Casey said. It's that good homey I-57 feel. Yeah. So I'm liking that pretty much right now. Yep.
I was going to tell Casey Nahunta's running for, I think, 1,000 for 20 this weekend.
Hey, I just got done building a 406 at Christmas time because that's where my Nova's going. That's my whole goal. They only brake race there. That's all they do is brake race. And I can tell you right now, I've been 629 there, and it gets a little bit sketchy. So
I actually first raced there when it was called Pike County.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
When it still does run right towards the oval track, right?
There is a concrete barrier, and if you don't hit that, you're going Dukes of Hazzard into the oval track.
Exactly. Yeah, it was always an entertaining place. Well, like I said, anytime you want to talk, give me a call, and I'll be around. I appreciate you having me on. I'm sorry if I rambled, but
nope, not at all. It's going to happen. We definitely want to have a clean stream next time. I don't know what all these technical difficulties. Maybe it was just one of those days for everybody, but definitely appreciate you. The chat is definitely saying we need a part 2. Everybody's definitely saying they learned a lot, you know, and thanking you for coming on the show. Before we get out of here, I'm going to shoot out the flyer for the 6-shooter, guys, coming up here in April. Make sure you're out there at Extreme Raceway Park. It's going to be one pretty good event. I've rented a travel trailer for that event. I'm going to park it right next to my race car so I can stay at the track all weekend long. I don't want to go pay hotel bills. I don't want to do any of that. I want to stay at the social event, Bret. You know what I mean? I want to be there. So I'm not going home. I'm staying right there. But as always, guys, as we do it here at the Going Bracket Racing YouTube channel, we will see you next Tuesday. Thanks for joining in.